Seiko have just released their brand new 38mm Seiko 5 sports model, and I will be reviewing in this video the Seiko 5 SRPK33, which is the turquoise dial, the most in view according to me. However, before you buy, know that this watch retails for 350 euros, and that right now it is selling for very close to that amount. Knowing that the SRPDs, so its big brethren of Seiko 5s, which are 42mm in diameter, are selling for about 100 euros less, can this watch justify that gap? Is the fact that it sheds around 4mm enough to make it about 30% more expensive? Well, let's see that right away. Let's start with all the versions that you can get of this watch. There's the black SRPK29, the cream SRPK31, this beautiful turquoise SRPK33, and an orange SRPK35. So all very classic Seiko colors, but for this one, I don't know if I have seen a Seiko with this color before. We'll get back to that color because it is something quite important about this watch. Let's start with the dimensions. You've got a 37.7mm in diameter, so a bit less than the stated 38 according to my measures. You've got 11.9mm in height, right under 12 is just very good. You've got a 44mm in lug-to-lug, nice and short. And you've got a 20mm in lug width. Just to compare it with the Seiko SRPDs, the big Seiko 5s, and of course the SKX as well. Those are just around 42.5 in diameter, around 46 in lug-to-lug, and 22 in lug width. Actually, let's compare it to the daddy of them all, the Seiko SKX. And you can see that there's a huge size difference, similar to the previous Seiko SKX 0013 Ovold, which was stated as a 37mm in diameter. Can this be considered the spiritual successor of the SKX 013? Well, only if the Seiko SRPs can be considered the successors of the Seiko SKX, so that will depend on you. Anyway, those dimensions make that it's very good to wear on the wrist. As you can see here, I was afraid that it would feel too dainty on my 7-inch wrist, but as you can see it here, it doesn't. It just feels right. It might also be that 125 grams in weight when sized for my wrist. Getting back to the SKX feels like you're wearing pretty much a diesel, but the brain adapts quite quickly and weirdly in some ways. Let's get back to that dial and to that color. I call that turquoise. If you're expecting something like a baby blue or a Tiffany blue, you will be disappointed. This is not it. The color is much greener. Photos and videos can sometimes render tricky colors, but if you can go ahead and check the Tissot PRX, in turquoise the colors are very similar. If you prefer this one, or a cleaner baby blue or pale blue, that is very much up to you. Just know that there is a difference between those colors. As you can see when here I put it next to my Saint Martin, which is very much sky blue and much closer to a paler Tiffany blue. Regarding the dial, you've got the applied markers here. Those are filled with Seiko's proprietary Lume Bright. We will see the Lume shot very soon. On top of the dial you've got the Seiko, which is applied as well in Seiko 5 fashion, and the latest 5 sign that we have gotten used to by now. At the bottom of the dial you've got the automatic text, and at 3 you've got the day and date, which are not color matched sadly. It is not a big disappointment, as they will be balanced by the marker at 9. At the peripheries of the dial you've got a graduated chaptering, and let me tell you that everything here is very reminiscent of the Seiko SRPDs. This is very much a scaled down version of an SRPD. Let's go to the hands, and here it becomes a bit weird because the hands are golden when the indices are silver. Why did they make that choice? I don't know. Does it look very bad? It doesn't look bad per se because of the color of the dial which contrasts well with both the silver and the gold, but I would have preferred that they keep one tone or the other. The Lume is good without being incredible anymore, as was the case about 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. Seiko Lume Bright used to run circles about anything else on the market. Now it's not the case anymore. The BGW9 has gotten much better and is on par, if not better, than these entry-level Seikos. In any case, Lume is not bad, and it will be way sufficient for your usage. Let's go to the bezel insert, and here some will not like that they have kept the same design as the Seiko 5s, meaning that you only have a seconds graduation from 0 to 20. One on the SKXs you had every second graduated, which made them look more professional. Regarding the rotation of the bezel, I would have expected better from Seiko. This is not uniform, and some sections feel light and then others feel harder. Maybe it's just a matter of it breaking in, but for now it doesn't provide a satisfactory feeling. Regarding the case, you can expect the same as with a Seiko 5 or even a Seiko SKX. So circular brush of the lugs, with the sides being polished. Everything is done here to a nice standard, good enough I would say for this kind of price. And of course, if you put the watch to the side, you can see that you've got drilled lugs, something you did not have on the Seiko SKX that comes with the Seiko 5KX family. If you flip the watch, you can of course see that 4R36 movement, which provides the day and date. You might know it better by its vanilla name, the NH36. It beats at 3 Hz, so 6 ticks of the second hand per second. It has roughly 40 hours of power reserve and a wide set of tolerances of -30 to +40. In fact, let's see how this one performs on the Timegrapher. I am not really happy with these measures. Usually you can expect between the -10 to +10. Here I am at almost double that. Not good for this kind of movement. Regarding the bracelet, always a weak point for the Seiko 5s, ever since their inception in the 1960s, and even though you don't have those nightmarish hair-pulling things that you had with the previous versions, the oyster-style bracelet is not a solid link bracelet. The end links are hollow, as you were expecting, but so are the links. As you can see with that parting in the center, I really believe that at this price point, Seiko could have gone with at least solid links. The clasp is your usual cheap Seiko clasp, folded all around, at least it is signed, but the weakest point of this clasp, I would say, it's not the fact that it's not solid, it's the fact that it only has 2 levels of micro adjustment. Most of the time you will be struggling to get a nice fit on this watch. Let's go to the first thing that I check when I get a Seiko, the QC issues. Are there any here? Well, not as bad as the previous Seiko 5 that I had. The bezel insert seems a bit misaligned to the right, as does that 6 index. Seiko can really not get their QC right. It is getting better if I take the individual watches that I have received, but it is not at the level that you see with a Citizen, an Orient, or similarly priced watches. Let's talk about the positives and the negatives of the watch. Even though I have talked about them along the video, the positive has to be that color. It is interesting and it plays with light in a very beautiful way, even though it's not a sunburst. Number 2, the size. Seiko is riding the trend of smaller watches, and it is good that they have done so, especially with this mythic design, and they do have something to back it up with, as it can be traced back to the SKX 0013, even though this is not a diverse watch. That makes that it wears wonderfully on the wrist. Ready for the list of negatives? Well, believe it that it's longer than the positives, as you have seen along the video. First of all, you've got all the negatives that you have with all the recent Seiko 5s. You've got questionable QC, you've got a bad strap with hollow links, hollow end links, and a terrible clasp with only 2 levels of micro adjustment. I believe that clasp might be pretty much as big as the ones we're using on their bigger Seiko 5s, which makes for a nice counterbalance when you're wearing the watch, but aesthetically it's not great. And you only have Hardlex crystal covering that beautiful dial. I don't know if it's only this unit, but again, that bezel rotation is not great because it is not uniform, something I have never experienced with Seiko before. So if we sum up the watch, it is pretty much what we experienced with the Seiko 5 GMT. You've got a watch that is pretty hyped, you've got a watch that is beautiful, but you've got a watch that keeps on disappointing on those key parts where Seiko should really look into. And then you've got the price, $350 for a watch that is exactly the same as the Seiko SRPDs. Can that be justifiable? Well, it is, because it is a newer release. Seiko always proceeds like this. If you really love the design of this watch and the vibrant colors and the amazing size, go ahead and get it. But if you want to wait for a while for the prices to come at around the same level as the Seiko 5s are right now, I believe it would be a much better buy. Thank you very much for having watched the video. Don't forget to do all those very nice things that the algorithm loves, liking, subscribing, commenting. Why not check the SKX and the Seiko 5 reviews, which should be showing on the screen right now. So see you there, or see you in the next video. Goodbye.